I'm just going to be super honest with you. I am pregnant. I've got baby brain, so I've got all my notes on here. So if it looks like I'm staring into the abyss, it's because my brain's just a million miles away. So I'm just going to say straight away, thank you all for coming. There's more faces here than I expected. I'm Savannah Wright. I'm the BIM Manager and Innovation Specialist at Maze Fire Consulting. We're a fire engineering consultancy based sort of all over the place. We've got offices here, we've got offices in the UK, Saudi, Dubai, sort of all over the place. We do lots and lots of different types of work, lots of different sectors. But our sort of biggest crowning sort of glory of everything is that we have got a BIM and innovation team that no other fire engineering department has got. And our biggest achievement this past sort of couple of months is that we are the first fire engineering practice pretty much anywhere to be certified to ISO 19650. And that was my job in being brought into the business. And presentation-wise, I'm going to be talking to you about how we've sort of bridged the gap between standards and practice. As I said, we're the first engineering practice to attain BIM certification. And what that means really is that we've been working with BIM fully now for the past sort of 12 to 18 months or so, and we're now leading that sort of push in the industry with BIM. And we don't know of any other competitor that's really doing what we're doing or who's working with the kind of people that we're working with. Ooh, that was quick. There we go. So we're going to jump in a time machine and go back to 2023, which is when I joined Maze Fire. I was the first BIM hire at the business. And over the last 2 years, our team has really grown and developed. So we've hired P, we've hired Sophie. There's been a few different people that have been brought in. I was hired primarily to attain BIM certification and lead us really through the bunch of BIM projects that we have been appointed to further sort of the business's understanding of BIM. Typically, you don't really hear of fire engineering companies doing BIM. It's very much a new concept for us as an industry as a whole. And what happened really was prior to my appointment, we were working with Foster and Partners, and they basically said to us, if you don't work in BIM, you're not getting the big shiny projects that we're offering you. So the business went, right, okay, we need to get some skills in, brought me in, and we went from there. And within about 6 months, we were up and running on their sort of BIM projects and doing what we need to do, and it's just gone from leaps and bounds from there really. So the biggest task really is achieving certification, and that really was sort of relatively small in comparison to the bigger challenges that the team and I have really been faced with. We've had to teach an office full of quite old engineers about BIM, about sort of changing the way that they have worked for the past maybe 30, 40 years. No more 2D drawings in Bluebeam, but something completely different. And we've interpreted all of the current ISO and sort of BS documents out there to write our own BIM sort of fire engineering documents. You'll notice, they're all very much geared towards the bigger industries, MEP, civil, architecture, but there's nobody really talking about fire. So what we did end up doing is basically writing our own set of codes and structures as an interpretation of the ISO and those procedures. I was also tasked with streamlining some really specific engineering modelling processes that involved sort of working with different files and information given to us by architects to output into things like IFC or our engineering or CFD modelling that we do. Now, the thing that we're really proud of is that we've got a really big, nice vision statement at Maze Fire, where we talk about being committed to improving workflows and enhancing project collaboration, all the sort of usual buzzwords that you would hear. But what we're really interested in is that we really do take pride in our BIM capabilities. And in short, what that means is that our ethos is to be innovative. And you'll see here as we go through, everything that we show you here and everything that we do when we work on projects has been built in-house and is a reflection of us working collaboratively with architects and other sort of construction professionals. If you need something on a project, we will build that in-house. We're not using a third-party tool. So really, how do we do that? We have developed some really totally unique tools. They're completely ISO compliant and also really designed with lots of the various fire documentation such as NFPA 140, 170, etc. You'll see as we go through. And they have been tried and tested now on multiple projects of all different sizes, scales, industries, etc., all to a massive success. And we're now really just reaping the rewards, and we want to share those with people and say this is what a fire engineering practice should do and what they could be doing. So our BIM team has just been growing endlessly. Projects are running smoother, more quickly, less errors, and we're now included in the wider BIM coordination calls, which has never happened before. So often people go, oh God, you're fire engineers, what are you doing sat at this table? That's not where you normally sit. So if we go, is there a delay? Hello? Oh, there we go. Sorted. Yeah. So back in 2023, we were pretty much the same as every other fire engineering practice out there. Very much sort of unfamiliar with BIM. It was a word that was thrown around. It was a requirement that we had to do, and we didn't really know what we were going to do with it. I was brought in, and my thing is I like to talk about BIM compliance in levels, and the levels are based off the UK government's levels that they set out basically for achieving BIM across all of their projects. And generally speaking, what we found as I started speaking to more and more fire engineers and started working on some of the projects at Maze is that most of the fire engineering industry was working, or will be still working, at level 0 and level 1. Which is really, really sort of basic work, you know, and that's where Maze Fire was at when I joined. And we are now at the level 2 and beyond. We're sort of now deciding what's after this, what comes next, and where do we need to go. So BIM really is a term that's bandied around a lot. You know, the bigger disciplines were with BIM, but fire engineers didn't. So we relied on sort of more traditional information such as 2D drawings and PDFs, which were very much sort of out of the loop of things. Lots of complaints from architects saying, you know, we're sending you information and it's out of date by the time you do anything. What I found and why I was sort of hired as a big part of it was I was an architect for 10 years, and then I was brought in to sort of consult with the fire engineers. And my main gripe as soon as they interviewed me was, I hate working with fire engineers because you're so old-fashioned. You send us information that's useless, we have to sort of cobble it together and we end up doing your work for you. And I don't want to do that anymore. We want to basically work on par with the architects and say, what you need, we'll provide, or we'll do something more for you. You know, and as we really know, BIM projects move so incredibly quickly, and, you know, FLS were just getting left out constantly. There was nothing that was sort of up to date, the information that we were being given. So the idea is now, obviously, with BIM, is that we're working with the most up-to-date information at all times, sort of producing the most relevant information to what's being required when it's required. So part of that was really, you know, we decided to change that and say, no, this is how fire engineers are going to work and this is how we will work. And it's worked. So, gosh. Yes, there we go. I might need to stand up here anyway because I've got some videos, so I'll just quickly scoot over there. Oops, it daisy. Is this going to work? Probably not. Yeah. So at Maze Fire we work directly within the project CDE to provide sort of live working Revit models with FLS markups and data included within them. The information can be standalone, or it can be kept within the FLS container, or it can then be imported with our new FLS import tool that we've recently developed, and it can be imported into the architectural model. Producing the FLS drawings has really never been simpler for our wider team. Gone are the days of really horrible, tedious PDF markups. So using our custom suite of tools that you can see, there is more as well besides these. These are all aligned with an FPA 170, and you know, they're all adaptable, and they all change sort of with underlying geometry and whatnot. So we have developed specialised door tags. Where's the door tags one? Okay. Yeah. The correct fire rating is basically placed directly onto the plan. Again, it follows NFPA 170 guidance, just like the compartmentation lines that you saw. And then we've got exit door and stair tags. So they also feature in our model quite heavily. All of our tags follow a standardised and a consistent layout across every single project. Whether we're tagging exits or stairs, the format remains uniform. It makes it really quick and easy for reviewers, contractors, stakeholders to understand exactly what they're looking at. What we also are really quite proud of is that each tag contains embedded editable information within the parameters, so it means that the displayed information such as the exit number or the width or the capacity isn't just text, it's actually live data tied within the model, so if something changes, the exit door and stair tag will also change along with it. And then we also use, come on, do something. Yeah, we also use fill regions to apply hatching across elements such as stair cores, means of egress, firefighting lifts, specialist fire rooms like fire control centres, pump rooms, etc. And anything else that really we need to highlight. And then we also have some specialised travel distances, but I'm going to touch on them in the next slide. Jump back. Oh, go to the next one. There we go. Oh, there's another video. Oh, I forgot about that. Play. There we go, I can come over here now for that. There we go, yeah. So some of our tools, including some of them on the previous slide, now you can see, we've actually recently been developing them into 3D. And what that means is you can put them into a VR headset, we can show them to a fire department, they can sort of walk around and we can talk them about the sort of logic behind the processes that's been applied. Now, you know, the future development of our innovations and BIM department really is for better visualization of data. That's what we're aiming for. That's what every architect screams at us for. We want to see it in 3D, don't just do it in 2D. So we initially really explored using Revit's native path of travel tool to sort of produce some really basic travel distance markups. But it offered a point-to-point automatic distance calculation, so it seemed like an ideal solution, but really quickly we found out that while it was really useful, it had quite a lot of limitations. More so when it came to customising and editing the paths to suit the fire policy plans. So our method instead, it uses the path of tool function to calculate accurate distances, but we then overlay a thicker, sort of more dashed symbolic line and paired it with a start and end symbol to clearly indicate the direction of travel and the travel origin of destination. So hopefully future versions of Revit are going to enable us to adopt the path of travel line more directly, but this solution sort of works for now. And we've also begun to create, you can see here, sort of door tags compartmentation in 3D, which all aid the visualization of data. The next step that we're now doing is that you will be able to, in sort of the VR environment, click on something in that environment. So if you click on the wall, it'll bring up the parameters within that wall and say, it is blah, 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 so many minutes, whatever. You can move around and move things around, or you can maybe highlight it and say it needs to be something different. Really what you can see is just a really brief snapshot of some of the tools and innovations that we're starting to do. And I say starting because these tools are really very, very new. And then if I go on to the next one. There we go, yeah. So really the idea is you contact with us, you connect with us, you contact us, and we work with you to develop these tools. So the idea is that you show us some projects, show us some interest, and we'll say, well, here's the tools that we've got that would enable you to sort of produce really nice fire information for your project. If it's something that is really bespoke, that is very much that we haven't got yet, but that you can think of, we will develop that in-house for you specifically. We've already got 5 or 6 different tools on the go at the minute. We've got one that we're developing where someone said, oh, well, we use MBS. So your import tool where you're telling us that you can import your fire information data into the Revit model, it's just going to adopt the parameters in Revit, not update MBS. So the information is going to be too different if, say, that changes and one changes. So we're creating something now that will actually sort of do a clash detection and say, hey, the MBS is wrong, that needs to be updated in line with Maze's parameter here. We're also doing one, someone asked for vertical sort of height calculations and stuff to be shown in the 3D environment, more sort of sectional elevational work tools that will be able to sort of be brought into the architectural model and sort of highlight some of those. We've had conversations with people, somebody wanted to be able to basically walk from the top of a building all the way down, see it exactly as it would be in like a fire scenario with flames coming at you, and you'd be able to walk through and see all the path of where you would go for egress and escape and everything, and be able to actually physically train fire departments and stuff. That's conversations that we have where they say, oh, can the fire department put a headset on and physically train their staff and say, well, this building that's going to be built, this is how you would evacuate people from here to there. So that's another step that we're getting into that we don't really know anybody else particularly doing. So yeah, what we're saying really is come and speak to us. If it's something that interests you and something that you can think, oh, that seems like we would have a use for those tools, do let us know. We'll set up a meeting with you, you show us some projects, we'll show you some of ours, and we'll just sort of meet in the middle and say, here's what we can develop for you, here's what we've got. We've got a couple of tools that we can't show because they're specific to a project, but obviously if we were working with you, we will be able to sort of show you a little bit more on those side of things. We have got a stand sort of somewhere out there, so do come and find us and we'll send you some information as well if you want to come and work with us. But it's really exciting. No one else that we know of is doing what we're doing. We've sort of scoped out a couple of fire engineers, and if they're using anything, they're using some third-party software that just isn't flexible. You have to just use what you're given, and projects just don't work like that.